Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Selena, and this is You Plus Happy. Each week, I bring you someone who challenges us to define happiness and success on their own terms with a dose of laughter. Remember to subscribe to the You Plus Happy podcast on YouTube to stay up to date on new episodes. You can also follow the show on Instagram at You Plus Happy. This week, I have Jesse Austell, who is the co-founder of Next Day Animations and director of Teen Adventure Summer Camp. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks, Selena.
Thank you for being here. I want to say I was very intimidated to ask you to come on the show. I've been wanting you to come on the show for a
I
while.
was intimidated to come on the show. I
But
don't do a lot of interviews.
I'm glad we're here. Glad we did this. All right. So I kind of let the guests go wherever they want to go, but how did you get started with Next Day Animations?
So Next to Animations, one of what we do is make stories, make information really engaging and fun in a short animated video that it kind of explains a complicated topic. And for me, I started out my career as a data analyst and consultant, and so we get hired for research projects. And I um, I felt like I could spend a lot of time doing research and kind of crunching the numbers and putting together the reports, and nobody would really like read it or care. And so that got me interested in the question of kind of like, well, how do you make people care? How do you make it interesting? How do you like break it down and explain it? And that led to a lot of design and animation questions.
Okay. So how did you get from there to owning your own company?
Well, I at the time I was doing consulting. I had uh, worked inside a association of nonprofits doing some research work for their consulting group, and we kind of took the job that I'd been doing for them and turned it into just being kind of a consultant out there on my own, still doing the same work as I was doing before for them, and but picking up some more clients and things like that. And so the consulting practice had a number of clients that were more around data research work. And so some of starting Next Animations was just going to those folks and being like, hey, do you want to do an animation too? Like, do you want to take this report that we're doing and make it something that's a little more interesting and engaging? And slowly over time, that stuff kind of took off, and there was, no time to really do a lot of the other work anymore.
I see.
So,
It sounds like everything was kind of a natural progression.
mm-hmm.
Were you nervous to ask them to propose, oh, let's make this into an animation?
Well, I think at the time we'd kind of done, I'd done like enough like test things to sort of be like, we can do this. It might not be good. There was some question around whether it was pull offable in a way that was good. And yeah, so that I think that question did exist, and it was sort of like, okay, we've got this research work, that's its own thing. Like, don't do anything embarrassing.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, felt passionate about making it something more than just kind of another binder on the shelf that people were, willing to pay to get the report. But it was sort of like nobody's really using this, and that I think is a problem a lot of organizations struggle with.
Yeah. And you're also the director of a teen adventure. So is that something else that you created, or is this something you're a part of?
No, that's a camp. Yeah, there's 4 Quaker camps in the like mid-Atlantic area, and there's residential camps, and those camps feed into my camp, which is the teen program. It's kind of like a outward bound adventure, so that the kids go out on a 3-week backpacking, rock climbing, canoeing trip, just kind of like carrying everything on their back. So I do that every summer, and actually was around the same time as Next Animations was starting up, because I also sort of took a look when they offered me the director job for that program. I kind of took around and I was sort of like, well, who's gonna pay me and allow me to like leave every summer? And so there was a question of like, oh, okay, it's me. Like, like
Yeah.
I'll have to do that and like figure out how to like make it work in the rotation. Like there's no job that's just gonna like let me just like walk away and disappear for
3 months.
yeah. And I wanted to, I liked the camp. I'd worked there a number of summers, and
Hmm.
yeah, so I feel like as I was stepping into that director role, I was also making some of these decisions around what the rest of life would look like.
Yeah. Taking matters into your own hands for for your schedule, your lifestyle, what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about being an owner of a company? So I think a lot of people think about entrepreneur. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you look at it that way, but think about owning their own business and their own company. How do you feel having this much responsibility? Do you feel like it's a huge responsibility because it's not just you, it's not like you and one other partner.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a lot of people depending on the company for their
Yeah.
life. So how do you feel I don't know, how do you feel about being having that much responsibility?
Yeah. Well, I don't feel in it alone. We have like a wonderful team, and
Hmm.
in that, I think some of that is my approach to kind of like work, where it's sort of like it is uh, one of the wonderful things we can do that I think gets missed in a lot of the way that like jobs like just kind of are, is that work is just a wonderful thing that we can do together as people,
Hmm.
and it is actually like it's joyful to work together and kind of solve problems together
Yeah.
with other people,
Yeah.
um, and so it's sort of like one of the opportunities that we have in the within our life,
Hmm. Hmm.
where we spend a bunch of these hours working, is kind of like doing that stuff together. So I don't feel like I'm in it alone. I feel like I'm with a great team, and that it's sort of like we will figure it out together. It's not
Right.
always. It's not like the industry changes a lot over time. Markets
Hmm.
change. What people want, taste preferences, all that
Hmm.
stuff is like things we have to like ride and adapt and sort of stay relevant. But I don't feel like I'm in it alone.
I love that.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that because I'm not an entrepreneur in like any traditional sense. Like I have the
Oh,
podcast, but I don't
you
have
have a
any
podcast,
employees.
yeah.
I don't have any employees yet. But I never thought about that until like this very moment that you have people who are dependent on the company to win, and then thinking about that perspective of, well, it's not just me. I have a team. I have people I can rely on, and I depend on, and that are in
Hmm.
this with me, and that does make a huge difference in anything I feel like that I've done. And it's always better to have someone else there with me as
Hmm.
I'm deciding and figuring things out. Were you excited as it grew? Because I'm imagining it started off very small, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and to the point you were just saying, I think there's a lot of pressure on leaders to like have all the answers,
Hmm.
and I think that it's like in a lot of ways like a lot of the role of leadership is like asking good questions and like being a good listener, and then trying to like, okay, well, here's what's coming up, and like really thinking about everybody involved and figuring out what's gonna do it for them, what's gonna make it work. And it's
Hmm.
not like get it right every time,
Okay.
um, uh, yet it started out, yeah, just yeah, me, a couple of contractors. We we essentially would like get the projects, and once I had like booked the project, then we put together a team of contractors. We would work on it. After a couple of years of doing that, I met Caitlin, who and
Hmm.
Caitlin, my business partner, and um, Caitlin was around right when was convincing that first like big client to like, okay, let's like, would you all give us like 8 animations like from this project? And that we kind of spent that year doing those animations and figuring out how to do them.
Yeah,
And we were doing other projects and things like that along the same time. But then it was the following year that we launched the Next Animations brand, um,
I see.
which itself kind of like grew within its
Yeah.
own entity.
Yeah, this is so interesting to me. I keep hearing things just naturally progress. Like you're doing the work, and then you're just paying attention, and then you're just taking the next steps
Hmm.
that present themselves. Right? Is that how it feels to
Right.
you?
Yeah. Yeah. I I mean, for me, the animation question, I was spending a bunch of time thinking about like how to solve that question of sort of like how do we make this stuff
Mm-hmm.
more engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw there's an animation called the Story of Stuff, and yeah, I saw that and I was just like, oh, that's it. Like they did this are pretty like actually even like sort of abrasive topic, and they're really breaking it down
Okay.
in a way. So I felt like that was like one moment where it sort of felt revealed to me like, yes, this is like a good path that solves the sort of like, you know, challenge that facing. But I think all along the way, it's sort of like the team grew and we kind of like assess,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
talk to everybody, like figure out like, all right, what should we do next?
Mm-hmm.
And also like just like keep checking in and making sure it's working for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
For you, for someone to be your business partner or to get hired with you, what do you look for? Because I know you said a lot of leadership is paying attention to what is listening and paying attention to what people are saying. So what do
uh-huh.
you look? What makes someone easy to work with or good to work with, or maybe not easy is not the right term, but what makes someone like I want to work with this person?
Yeah, I don't. I feel like there's. I mean, every organization needs so many different types of folks, and
Mm-hmm.
there's so you can't just have like one thing. Yeah, I feel like, um, and with that, a lot of what we're doing is figuring out how to work together as a team
Yeah.
and sort of come up with a creative project that involves a lot of different pieces of expertise and
Mm-hmm.
input, and so I do think some amount of like able to work together, and
Yeah.
like I mean the company we talk a lot about our values and sort
Mm-hmm.
of having the shared values like partnership, inventiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, kind of centering our clients and the work and a lot of that, and sort of like we really want to do a really incredible job for the client, and we want to like hold them and hold them in high regard and kind of be a good partner for
Right.
them,
Right.
and so I think that it's like, okay, if somebody's coming on, like does it feel like, do we share similar of these values, of the company's
Mm-hmm.
values, which people articulate values in a lot of different ways, so it's like it's not like they need to use the same words or
Right,
something like
right,
that.
right.
I feel like it's kind of like listening for that, and 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 being able to like work together and really like center the client, and then also like the creative work and expertise matters too, of sort
Yeah,
of a like um yeah.
yeah. Okay, okay. So again, just paying attention and making sure that they feel like it feels like they're in alignment with with your big picture or whatever. I don't want to throw those words around, big picture, but whoever it is, they feel like they're in alignment with the goals of the company.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good does it feel like for them this is going to be a good, like they're going to get something out of it too. I feel
Right,
like
right.
it's sort of and I feel like working together can, is often like a very long-term partnership where we're
Hmm.
sort of like working together for a long period of time. And um, yeah.
Yeah. Are there any red flags when you're meeting with someone that you potentially work with and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Are there any?
I feel like people being a jerk. I feel
Okay.
like that's like a pretty
That's fair. Pretty obvious.
and like, yeah, I mean, I think I like joke about that, but I do think that like, that is like a big part of like the like workplace culture that like makes a big difference for everybody. And
Yeah.
so there's sort
Yeah.
of a like, um, it's like at the end of the day, like there's some bottom lines of like we just need to like be kind to
Right.
each other,
Right.
and in yeah, some workplaces will encourage like a lot of like aggressive competition or something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and I am kind of like, oh, I don't I feel like that's a big red flag
Right. Right.
for me, of sort of like, whoa, um, yeah, because now, and that is our like workplace culture is very collaborative, and so it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're all working together to get through, the finish line,
Right.
rather than just like somebody's like I am the champion
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And that might work for some environments. It's just
Oh yeah,
not, and
yeah.
if so for
In
some
some companies, some
people,
environments, like, and some companies really select for that, and
yeah, yeah,
yeah, where I feel like, um,
that's
yeah, I
not.
feel like sales is one area where it's like people get
Mm-hmm.
their elbows out, and
Yeah, yeah.
um, not not every sales team is like that, but I feel like it gets that rep sort
Right,
of.
right. As I talk to a bunch of, as I interview more and more people, I just like, I love to make it clear that just because something works for one company or for one person, it doesn't mean that's how it has to be across the board for everybody. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I know I just want listeners to be clear, like this works for this company, but doesn't have to be that way because I work at this company and I love it. But I wouldn't want to be in a place where they're like, Selena, you have to be the top whatever, and like I'm like kind of going against one another, versus the collaboration. But again,
Mm-hmm.
that's what my personality calls for, and that's what it seems like the kind of place that you want to be a
Yeah.
part of.
Well, and I think with remote work and all kinds of other things like that, we've like seen a big shift from kind of like a command and control model of like
Right,
how
yeah.
companies work to
For
where it
sure.
like is more collaborative, and it's kind of like bottom up, and also like everybody's at home, so it's like if the heart and mind isn't in it, like I don't know,
Yeah.
it's hard to get things done. So it's
Yeah, 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 it's true. I know people who are still being like, I don't know what the right term is, but like micromanaged working from home and
mm-hmm,
like surveillance and like they have
mm-hmm.
to be on their internet. Oh, you have the backdrop of Baltimore, and like they have to be surveillanced. And again, that wouldn't be an environment that I feel like you can bring your best self,
Yeah,
but whatever works for them.
yeah.
Have there been, oh, and I wanted to say about that too. I think it's when I was looking for new work, I think it's important to think about your personality and where you thrive and what kind of environments to look for when you're working.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was being interviewed, I told Sage what I needed too, because I wanted it to be a good fit for
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
it's a big investment when the company's in, and it's a big investment as the employee because you're learning all this stuff and you hope to be there. It's a long-term thing. So I think it's important to take time to like, I know I needed that, like not just, oh, I just want to get a job and make money. No, where am I going to thrive? Where am I going to be
Mm-hmm.
my best self?
Yeah,
Where am I going to enjoy being? And where can I contribute my
yeah.
best self?
Does it align with your own goals?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know everyone doesn't have that time or freedom to sit around and think because we all have to take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, just a little thought I think goes a long way in that
Yeah.
area. Have there been challenges doing this work or with the camp that you had to push through?
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, in part of like, I mean, people are like, oh yeah, I don't like my boss. I'm gonna go start a company or something like that. And then you have a company, and you're like, oh, actually, I have 150 bosses, like
Mm-hmm.
including everybody who works here. I just so it's
Yeah.
sort of like it's like there's um, you still have the responsibility, and so I think even though the company was in some ways like built around for me that like I would leave every summer, which I think like created opportunities. It meant that like it meant that I mean some people start a company and then they sort of feel like they're stuck, like the company sort of owns them kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that because the company has had this habit where I like do leave every year, and it's like so I could never be like too important to it kind of thing,
Yes.
but that's still uh, everything has to get done, so you can have a workplace that has a lot of flexibility, which we try to do,
Mm-hmm.
but also like all the work still has to be done
Yeah.
like kind of by somebody. So if I'm showing up and I'm doing my time each week and then I disappear, like I was doing something.
Right. Right. Right.
So it's like, okay, some of that cannot get done for a little while, but also like it all has to get done at some point probably.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So that's the challenge, getting all the
I,
work
I
done.
think that it's not always, it doesn't always feel like for me, having the camp and the company, like that felt like enough to me. And I'm not sure like either on their own would have quite felt like complete.
I see. Yeah.
And uh, maybe now that I have like a kid and just different things going on in my life, that would sort of feel like it is kind of checking all the boxes for me. But it still can be challenging to like make everything work together. And that's I don't. It's not like yeah, you could kind of build your own life, but does it all like it's not like it's all going to be easy all the time.
Right, right. That's a really good point. I think people think like we have these ideas. I don't know, but I'm not going to speak for you, but I think sometimes we have these ideas and these visions and goals, and we think, oh, when I get to this point, everything's going to be smooth sailing. And it's like, no, you still have challenges that come up and
Yeah,
still have things like that you don't want to do. Like, I love the podcast, but I don't like editing that much anymore. Like, it's just things that around whatever you're doing that you may not want to do at some point. So it's not
yeah,
like this, like, I don't think the role ever is like, okay, I've arrived. And it's just,
yeah,
it's like a constant reassessing or some tasks within it that you may not love, but you love the big
yeah,
picture. So you do what you got to do,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do you feel like, and it doesn't have to be about the companies that we've mentioned, but just in whatever you want to talk about, but have you felt like you failed and what did you do? How did you deal with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that might be a matter of perspective. I like often think of like uh, there's a phrase "fail forward" that
Mm-hmm.
you like. It's like sort of a little bit. I felt like in the early parts of the company, particularly, it sort of felt like if we're not like making mistakes, we're not like trying enough things. And I still feel like that like things should be going wrong some of the time,
Mm-hmm.
just to mean that you're trying enough like new things that you are innovating and kind of like figuring it out.
Yeah.
And so I do think of that as like the I don't know, I guess the reframing of that is sort of like a fail forward of just like actually like the plan is that we're going to try some things and then they're not all going to work and we'll talk about it and then we'll figure out how to like address this and there,
Yeah.
and then we'll try that and like, and then you just get a little bit better all the time. I know we talk a lot about like 2% smarter every day,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
just sort of a like, so the emphasis isn't really on, like whether or not something didn't work out quite right, but like whether or not we're like
Okay.
taking the learning and knowledge from the things that we're trying to do,
Right.
and that we're sort of like taking the time to assess and debrief and sort of be
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, like
Yeah.
what now?
If you started another company and it didn't work out, you would have that same perspective of I tried this thing and it didn't work out. I learned from it and then I'm doing something else.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I haven't thought about that in a long time, of just
You haven't had
like
to.
doing it again. And yeah, and in a time when I like, yeah, have a family.
Right,
And
right, right.
yeah, it was told me that it's like a lot of times it's like some of these big pieces of our life, our like jobs, where we live, like our partner, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. It's like a lot of times we only really have like one going on, and then
Mm,
it's like you just sort of like try to, it's like only one's really like, yeah, that's really happening right now.
yeah.
And people kind of expect all three or four of those things to be kind of like going on for them at the same time. But
Okay.
like, it's sort of like find one that works, like stick with it, start to try to like build out the other parts.
Yeah. You're saying focus on one at a time.
Yeah, well, and I mean, maybe some of that is just noticing when like one piece is like feels like, yeah, this is going well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, uh, to the question of if I would, I think I would take that same perspective again. I felt like
Yeah.
that informed as just like a general principle for like starting a business, of sort of like combining the like the like listening and sort of like uh, with like creating a work environment where it's like okay to make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and that people are taking the time to learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important how we look at failures because when we, like you said, when we try things, all of it's not going to work out. And then, but the question of you said like, because I never thought about it like this. So if you have these three, like our lives are well rounded, right? Can
Mm-hmm.
you put like, so we have our family, our career, and whatever. Can some of those things kind of go, the foundation is so well built that some of those can go on autopilot for a little while we concentrate on something else? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're concentrating on a new addition to your family, but and the
Mm-hmm.
company still gets your attention, but it doesn't have to have so much as the
As
beginning.
the beginning time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this perspective. You can have it all, but not all at the same
Yeah.
time.
Well, and I mean, to the question of like the happiness, I think some of our expectations around sort of like all these things are going to come up for me, like
Uh-huh.
kind of where it's like for a lot of life, like they're not all going on at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like, um, yeah, and I think, but some of the like, okay, like what's like the purpose of my life? Like what's like where am I doing those things? Like
Hmm.
what job am I doing? It doesn't have to be the same as my like sort of personal mission statement.
Right, right.
And like, yeah, and then, who are the key people in it
Hmm.
that yeah.
Okay, okay. I'm thinking about that. I didn't. I never thought about it like that. Like they're not all going on at the at 100% at the same time.
Uh-huh.
You who would even want that? That's too much, right? You can't. I don't think you could do that. Who or what is your biggest motivation for you to have started the company? And it sounds like you just look at your. I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like you look at your life and you see what it needs, and then you just do it.
Well, biggest motivation now, I think, it's like once the company was there and there's people in it, it's like,
Hmm.
and there's clients and things like that. Like for me, a lot of the motivation then is sort of thinking about like those people and their life, so it's like thinking about like the employees of the company, the clients that we work with, different
Yeah,
contractors that we work with, and sort of thinking about like, okay, how does everybody's, we're all sharing this portion of our life together that is sort of some piece of our careers. Like,
yeah,
how are we going to have kind of the, collectively the best experience doing that? And so I think I found that piece very motivated, just thinking about like the team and
hmm,
in so even though there's kind of like all these other reasons that kind of like started things, once everybody was
right,
here, it was sort of like, well, that's actually the part that I find like most driving is sort of some of that like, I guess, like sense of responsibility
yeah,
and care for how everybody's doing.
yeah. Is it the same with for camp? Why you keep showing up every year is because you feel like responsibility, you enjoy it, and it's helpful to the
Yeah,
camp
yeah.
goers.
Camp is like one of these things where it's like it's just 6 weeks. The whole program, like staff training, 2 weeks, and the program, like it's just 6 weeks, but it's like the amount of transformation that happens in such a short
Mm,
amount of time for just everybody
yeah,
involved. It's just, every summer I'm kind of like, I get to the, I'm like, yeah, it's still good. It's like I still want to be doing this. So,
hmm,
so I think well past beyond when it like totally made sense for my like life to keep
right,
doing it, I've sort of been like, this is still good. This is still like a special space in the amount of like time commitment for the output that outcome that everybody's like
hmm,
getting, um, is just really, yeah, like inspires a lot of awe and
right,
like also just seeing the campers and the kids and like that gives me a lot of like I don't know, like in a cheesy way, like hope for the
hmm,
future and sort of
yeah,
seeing like being tied into different generations. I think like matters to me.
yeah. I used to volunteer with these girls, and they were like 13 to 17,
Mm-hmm.
and the it was a shelter, but it closed down. And the last day, like seeing so much growth, they put on a show, and seeing like from the day they came in to the day they came out, like I would have to hold back tears, like don't cry in here right now, because
Yeah.
it's like just stop it. But it's so I know what you're saying. I don't have it like every year, like how you're at the camp, but for listeners, like, I don't know, go volunteer with some youth, and it
Uh-huh.
does so much. I would leave feeling high, and I know it sounds like crazy, but like I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, they did this, they did that, and like they just amaze me every week, and so because it was a weekly thing, so to see that growth,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's nothing like it, especially
Yeah.
when you feel like you helped a little bit, just
Yeah.
a little bit. I
Yeah.
can't take much responsibility, but I was here. It feels really nice to see that. So I get what you mean. I have a very trite question. What's the best advice you've ever received about anything, I guess?
Oh, the best. Oh, I don't know, Selena. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, just give our listeners advice. We would usually close that out, but I think because I was intimidated to interview you, and I think if people aren't, haven't started a business and don't have these lives where it sounds like your life is, because we use the word cultivated a lot. Like your life is cultivated in what you want to do and what works for you. And so it's like, what's the advice of you? Like, how do you even know exactly what you need? Because you really, the camp was important to you, so you kind of orchestrated your life around it in a sense, and you knew like, oh well, the data, the way that this is coming across is not really working for this
Hmm.
is collecting dust, and I do all this work, and how can we make this more engaging or whatever. So it sounds like and I don't know, but it sounds like you've built your life in a way that is really in a way you really enjoy and like,
Hmm.
and I hope you're comfortable with this. You biked like all these states or
Right.
something.
Yeah. I'm a
You do all these cool
my wife
things.
and I we do bike touring.
Bike
Yeah. So we
touring,
went across the country and around
and
the South Island in New Zealand. Yeah. So
hello, like this is really cool. and
we,
and I think a lot of people don't even think about, like, oh, I can't because I have to work, or I can't because
uh,
I have to. So I'm just fascinated that you've done that. Anyway, what are your
yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, a wonderful book. Read Franklin Covey is like an author, talks about like just different life stuff,
Hmm.
um, and uh, and I think spends a lot of time like talking about like how do you take kind of like the mission for your life. You're sort of like okay, here's what I'm doing, and like fold that mission into your like habits for each week, and
Mm.
your what you're kind of doing each day. So it's sort of a like how do you build the habits that kind of
Yeah.
like fold in so that like at the end of the years and things like that you do kind of get there. um I mean there's everybody's life's so different
Hmm.
too, and it's not uh there's a lot of things that I feel like happened to me in my life that were just sort of they were also just kind of lucky.
Hmm.
Were fortunate or sort of some opportunity that was like given to me. um like my yeah, or work that my parents had done that sort of helped to benefit me in some way. So there's sort of I don't think it's like a universal thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I certainly couldn't say that like the formula as it sort of like worked out for me feels like it's like applicable
For
for
everybody.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think that proceeding with like a lot of like thoughtfulness and care for the people around us, and also like consideration for sort of like, okay, what is it that I want to do while I'm here?
Yeah.
Um, and uh, it seems like kind of like a basic question, like what's important to me
Hmm.
as an individual, but it's like it's a really complicated
It's
answer.
very complicated. I know that, and it
So
changes.
yeah, it's like not the same over time,
Hmm.
and yeah, so but it still is a worthwhile question
For
to be
sure.
examined.
Yeah.
To have in that way, yeah, like you're saying, a cultivated, like a considered life.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot, and this is not to like minimize what happened, like the pandemic. I mean, it was horrible, and I wish it never happened, but it did. And the silver lining for me was the time that it gave me to sit down and think. and not move and not
Mm-hmm.
be going. And that's when I realized how important starting the podcast was to me, becoming a producer, and where it gave me time to sit down and think about where I wanted my life to go. It's taken a little bit, different directions and different, turns. But the bottom line is what you said of just, it's an important question to ask yourself what's important to you. And like you said, everybody's life is, different. We have different opportunities and different things fall in your lap. But I think at least if you know what you want and try new things, it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even maybe not be able to go on a bike tour, but maybe you could bike on the weekends with a group, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to go away to summer camp, but I volunteer once a week
Yeah.
with the youth. So I think if that's something that's like whatever's important to you, it may not look like someone else's story, but it is important to know that and give that to yourself. It's like a gift.
Yeah.
I think in any way you can, even if it's on a very minimal scale. Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a grand old thing, Everything doesn't have to be grand. Those little things are like help. Anyway, I'm not trying to tell people what to do. We're saying what worked for us. And I hope it's something you get something out of it. I've been thinking about this recently of how do you know you're making the right decision?
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I mean, decisions. Uh, I mean, the I feel like right away the gut often knows, um,
Mm-hmm.
but you sort of have all those things that it's like, okay, what's my mind thinking about? Like, what's the so often I feel like it's like good to get back to like what was my gut originally before I started like wrapping it around in my
Mm-hmm.
head, and like, and then there's lots of big choices where I feel like it's kind of like the like if it's not two thumbs up, it's a hell no kind of thing.
Oh
So there's
yeah.
I think there are some of the really big choices where it's like okay to be a little more like you know like I don't feel good about this, like,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
good enough to sort of be like it's not an enthusiastic yes for me. And so I don't know, I feel like that's a good threshold. Now that is to say, I feel like in the world of like running a business or something like that, there's lots of times where it's like it may look kind of glamorous on the outside, but it's like just kind of imperfect, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of like trying to like take the step forward to make the best choice that's what seems available with often limited information. And
Mm-hmm.
um, but you still often have to commit to like one way or another.
Yeah.
Maybe you can hedge a little bit with some things, or
Yeah.
um, but
I like that word, commit. Just commit to making one of them. One of the you got to make a
yeah.
choice. So just commit to whichever
Yeah.
one you make.
Well, and to let the like good, like don't let the sort of perfect get in the way of the good.
Mm.
Um, because it's like, oh, we also have to like just kind of keep moving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you hope people say about you when you're not in the room? That's a question I ask everyone.
um oh yeah, all right. What do you hope people
I don't know. I don't know, Jesse.
yeah, okay. Well, I yeah, I mean, I would like to think, um, I guess I would like, I don't know how to
No.
answer that
No, okay,
one.
okay. It's okay. I think it was a thing of I came up with these questions with someone else. Some of them have changed, but I think initially it was just like I guess not legacy, but just more like what do you want to give the world or whatever.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I don't
I like it as a question. I think I just don't have a good
a good
answer
answer.
for it.
And I told Jesse before we started, I would respect any answers. Wait, any questions he didn't want to answer. What do you so the whole show is about defining success for yourself, and And I think before this started, I was concerned, not concerned, like, but in our culture of like, oh, everything's about getting,
Yeah.
materialistic, and people think of money as success, or gaining,
Yeah.
or materialistic things as success. And I really wanted to challenge that, and because I've heard many people say, "Well, I got this amount of dollars, and
Uh-huh.
but you still have to live your life. You're still going to be
Right.
in traffic. You still got to work out. You still got to, you still
Yeah.
have to do certain things." Anyway, what's your definition of success?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, in the theme of the podcast, I think about it a lot of that of sort of like everybody really has to like do that for themselves,
Yeah, yeah,
and in all ways, like we're the only ones who can sort of like, uh, tell us like what it's like. We kind of have to come to like what is important to us.
right.
You don't have to, you can kind of just move. It's totally possible, and it's like, yeah, there's folks where it's like they're like, yeah, the money does do it for me
Yeah,
actually, and
yeah,
that's like,
yeah, for sure.
but yeah, I've never felt that way, and certainly, yeah, like, to your point, there's a lot of folks where it's like, oh yeah, I got the money, but boy, I kind of missed the mark somewhere along the way, and like now
Yeah,
what? Um, and um, yeah, so I feel like, uh, that is all to say, like, I think that is the question of like, yeah, like what is important to me, and it's not like, you arrive at one answer, but it's like
right.
important to just kind of keep asking it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I've been thinking about it a lot too because I don't have an answer like sitting somewhere, but I know I thought one of the most important things that won't change is community.
Hmm.
The community might change, but having community,
Yeah.
I think it's like you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Los Angeles, I know the podcast, if people who listen are like, okay, you lived in LA, get over it. But it was I talk about it every episode, but it taught me so much about who I am and how I see the world and what's
Yeah.
important to me. And I didn't have a community out there, and I was across the country from my community, so I
Yeah.
couldn't easily get to those folks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't like this. I don't like these they weren't superficial, but just these connections. There aren't connections, you
Yeah.
just know my name and we just say hello. Those
Yeah.
are fine. But to like those genuine where people see, I see Avatar, I see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And so I really that became so for me that became something that I don't, maybe who knows what could happen, but I don't think would be wavering
Yeah.
in my definition of success.
Yeah.
So anyway, again,
Yeah.
finding out.
Well, and in a lot of ways, yeah, you get to, it's like at the end of the road, we just, yeah, it's the kind of the people we have along the way, whether there
Yeah,
are like, yeah, family, friends, coworkers, and like it's like important to care about each other, and
yeah,
like, yeah, and build those connections, and some of that means, yeah, just showing up for people, being present, and it doesn't have to be like such a heavy, like, heroic lift.
yeah. That's so true. One night I couldn't sleep and I was thinking about what if I won like $1 billion, what would I do? And that wasn't to say good for the money, even though like money's fine, but
Uh-huh. I
what
mean,
would
it's not right. It's not like be like, oh man, I got this $1 billion.
right. I would be excited. I would be very excited. But then I asked myself, what would my day to day look like?
Yeah.
And then I asked myself, who would I be with?
Yeah.
I still wouldn't want to be alone. I would still want to be with my friends and my family. And
Yeah.
so I think that's when I really was like, oh, success to me is having the people around me and doing whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
Because the money's just going to give you more freedom. Or,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. I never had $1 billion. But I don't know. When are you the happiest?
Oh, well, right now I have a 11-month-old baby. So yeah, this year a lot of joy has just been from just
Yeah,
like watching like the transformation of the first year, and
yeah.
yeah, and just like those moments where it's like, oh, you just like got that. You watch me
Mhm.
do that thing, and then now you're doing that thing, or you're just, yeah,
Yeah.
watching his like sense of humor emerge and things like that, where it's just sort of yeah, I feel like that right now has been like a big driver of joy for me.
Can't imagine every day you get to see this little guy
Yeah.
and like watch him change.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, must be very, very fun time.
All happens very
You
fast. So
just blink and it's like, wow.
well,
Um,
yeah, well, I mean, and kids really mark time, I feel like, in a way, like where
yeah,
it's like years just kind of go by, but yeah, a kid, it's like, okay, well, now you're one. And that's pretty different than you were like a year ago.
right.
So what a trip you've been on.
I,
So,
I can't, I just can't imagine watching a baby grow every day.
yeah.
My gosh, it blows my mind. Okay, I only have, well, you already answered one, so I only have one more question. And I think you kind of answered it earlier, but for friends and people that you invite into your life, what qualities do they have to have?
Uh-huh. Oh, um, boy, I don't feel like there's like a thing. Um, I mean, I think the no jerks policy still stands, but
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
um, yeah, I would, yeah, I think it does mean a lot to me when I see people that are, yeah, where I notice them being, yeah, kind to others, and also like, in times where it's like it's not like there's other people looking or something like
hmm,
that. I feel like that. I feel like that goes a long way
yeah.
um, for me of sort of like, um, yeah.
How do you show up? Because it sounds, this is, I'll close out after this, but it sounds like you show up for people that's very important to you, and respecting other people. How do you show up on the days, because we're human, that you feel like not yourself, or you're not in a good mood, or you're tired, or you're cranky, or you're just, how do you show up for people in those days? And like, just like if you're walking down the street and you're just not in the mood, and just giving that kindness on those days where it's not easy. Like,
Yeah.
does that make
I
sense?
mean, I think keeping in mind that you never know like what everybody else's day is either, and like,
Yeah,
um, yeah, so I feel like even on the best days, it's sort of a like I still don't know. Like I could be having this experience, but I like actually have like maybe no idea like what your experience is.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, and which I think ties to sort of what I was drawing on earlier around like, okay, it's a good reason to like be kind and
Yeah.
like, take the care of the people around us. And um, yeah, my wife jokes that I don't really get grumpy. I like, so I like,
What a
I
trip.
like, yeah, I don't, and she might be right. Like I don't actually like feel that grumpy for a little while. There was a little while where I had I had like a I don't know, a chronic uh, illness for a couple of years,
Oh wow.
and then I would get around like 8 in the evening or something, and I was like, what is going on with me? I was like, oh, I'm grumpy.
It was so
I'm
foreign to
in a
you.
bad mood.
Like, oh, that's what that
Which really gave me like a lot of insight into like, yeah, it's like I have like a lot less control over that than,
is.
you
Hmm.
know, yeah, would like to think. And those times, like fortunately for me, passed. It was like a long road, um, but yeah, I mean, I think even then, it's still like nice to like try to muster what we can of sort of
Wow.
the patience and care.
Wow.
Like,
Wow. Okay. I wish I would never got grumpy. I have to push the grumpies away. Like, hey, don't take over today. But you don't even have that emotion. I know you. Apparently, you discovered it. It took a lot.
Yeah, I was like, okay, it is like possible for, yeah.
Wow.
For,
This baseline even kill. Okay. Well,
yeah, yeah. I wonder
well,
if I'll regret sharing that tidbit, but
no,
that's
no.
yeah,
If you don't get the
being
grumpies, you don't
real.
get the grumpies. You're just a lucky guy. Just I
Sorry if folks are like, I just can't relate to this guy anymore.
no.
Like,
I know. I think it's great that there's all different kinds of people out here, and then like I don't. One day I could be someone who doesn't get the grumpies. Maybe I aspire. What a dream. Uh, well,
Lots of water, take fish oil, I don't know, whatever.
no, for real. That's not, being hydrated is a big deal. I think we take
The
that.
basics sometimes do really go a long
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And you work out, and those things probably help.
Lessons learned from summer camp.
Yes.
It's like actually people just need to like eat, drink water, and like get enough rest.
Just like the baseline, the human needs met.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Easy not to give those things enough credit.
Yeah, take them for granted. Wow. Well, we got it, guys. All you have to do is drink water and eat and work out. We'll be fine.
Life advice. We can fill that back in for my like top advice.
Yeah, that's all we need. Do you have anything else? Do you feel good?
Well, on that same topic, my wife, whenever she's grumpy, I'm sort of like, "Do you need some water?" And she's like, "Shut up."
But sometimes that really is it. I snapped at my friend the other day and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm hungry. And I hadn't eaten in like 7 hours. That was a long time for me. And then I ate and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah.
But it really does play like those little tiny things.
Yeah.
You just have to just keep some snacks. I'm sure you have those around now. Okay. I'm going to close this out. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Do you feel okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse, for sharing your time with me and inspiring listeners to redefine success for themselves. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Again, I ask that you subscribe to the You Plus Happy channel. That's the most important way to support the show. And you can follow the show on Instagram at You Plus Happy. And I asked the guests to say the tagline, which is, well, you can't cheat, Jesse. No one can cheat. We'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Okay. So we'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Yay, we did it!
So, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. That's it.